Hello, my name is Dr. George Mochocki, and welcome to Supervision series that I am doing. You're either taking me in an online class, a face-to-face class, or in one of my workshops. So you already have access to my concept maps, the reading material. So let's go on right into the planning section on here. So let's talk about planning from a supervisor's perspective. All managers and supervisors have to plan. Companies have to strategically plan. Part of the whole plan, what we're going to learn is the difference between objectives and goals. What are objectives and what are goals? Supervisors' time span, what he or she has to do. What are what we would consider SMART goals. Policies and procedures and rules, action planning, contingency planning, and supervises 5 planning activities. How do I scheduling? Planning with a team. That means the team does most of the planning, but remember, even though the team is a self-managed team, you as a supervisor still have to have some input because you still have a responsibility. They're empowered, they run it, but you have to communicate the right information and the control processes. Okay? So, let's go right into this. Planning. Let's give a real quick definition of planning. Management functions of setting goals. So you figure management, the top management, comes up with goals and determine how they're going to met. So there's the goals and follows with the objectives or the strategic plan that the organization is looking for. Now, what do supervisors do? Supervisors, what tasks the department needs to do to complete to achieve the goals that management basically decided. That's their level, that's their expertise, that's the managers, and how and when to perform those tasks. As a supervisor, it comes down to the middle manager. Everything goes down the pyramid, for lack of better words. This way, we're not talking right now about an inverted pyramid. We'll talk later in the chapter, in the readings, other series, how we invert the pyramid. So the people from the bottom are basically the ones in charge, not in charge, but giving information, okay? But for now, supervisors to complete and achieve the goals. Now, why should we plan? First of all, I have to understand what the goals are. I'm working for an organization, a strategic plan. Look, if I have goals to lose weight, what are my objectives? I make small objectives to achieve those goals. I set priorities to meet the organizational goals as a supervisor. It forces managers to focus on the future. If I want to lose weight, that's how I'll do it tomorrow. I have to say, starting today, I'm going on a diet. Starting today, I'm going to go on physical activities. Starting today, I'll do whatever I'm going to do. I'm going to eat healthier, drink more water. Establishes a fair way for evaluation. How do I evaluate? I would look at the scale, and that's what the control mechanisms to make sure that I am on target for the goals and to meet what do you call it, the organizational goals. Help use resources efficiently. Basically, it helps to use the resources. I mean, I have to plan in advance. If I know I'm going on vacation and I don't have a car, I got to make sure I rent it. If I know I'm going to do a certain task and I don't have all the equipment or the employees, remember, human capital, human employees, equipment, trucks, technology, time, all those are part of my how do I utilize the resources effectively. I only have so many, I don't have one car for every engineer or salesperson. I do if they're on the road all the time and they need it. But most of the engineers or salespeople, in my experience, they do their job reviews or meet with the customers in the morning, and then in the afternoon they do the work or do the paperwork and everything else. So what happens? That resource, that car, is sitting there not being utilized effectively. I'm paying taxes, I'm paying everything else there. So instead of having one car for each engineer, I'll have one car for 2 engineers. And part of the planning is you do your stuff in the morning, you do yours in the afternoon. Understand there's the circumstances where I need a car, and I'll have one additional car that could be utilized for all, or if both individuals or someone's off, that car is open. Not that it's my car and I lock it up. It's resources that is shared among the team. And as a first line, as a supervisor, manager, or owner, I have to make sure that I utilize those resources properly and effectively and efficiently to get the most out of my money for the return for that resources. I need them, but and sometimes if I only need a certain type of equipment once every 2 months or once a month, I have to look at it. Does it make sense to purchase it and keep it if it's a high maintenance piece of equipment, or do I just basically lease it or rent it out? You see a lot of small business contractors, they do a lot of work they have the equipment to do the day-to-day work. But then they get this one large project. Do I bring in another contractor that has a tool, or do I go to Home Depot, Menards, and just rent a tool for the one time, or a Target rental or something else? You see? But I had to plan in advance. I know I had to do this. I don't have the tools. So how do I rent it? I put the money down. I get it the night before. I reserve it. And so when I'm looking at planning, it forces me to plan because I know what my goals are. It also helps me utilize my resources efficiently and effectively. Okay, what are goals and objectives? Let's say, first of all, objectives. Objectives are basically the desired accomplishment or as a part of the organization as a whole. Goals, objectives with a broad focus. Identify what people should be striving for. So if I look at goals, and I can move this around. Let me just move this around. I'll go like this. So the first thing that makes more sense, I have the goals from senior management or middle management come down and tell me, here's what my goals are. They're very broad, they're very focused, identify what people should be striving for. Now it comes down to me as a first-line supervisor or a manager or a team leader, specify the desired accomplishment as part of the whole organization, of the organization as a whole. I'm only one little part to meet the objectives of the customer satisfaction. What could I do to satisfy customer satisfaction? What could I do to satisfy quality work or delivery? And that's the overall goal of the whole company, but it comes down to each department has to have certain objectives to meet the ultimate goals, okay? So we have the difference between goals and objectives. And a lot of times people interchange them. It's what I'm looking at is that you strategically have a plan going forward. What do you call a goal or objective? It's in this class you have to know the difference because it has different connotations to a person when I talk about a goal versus objectives. Okay. So now strategic planning. When I look at strategic planning, are long-term goals. Input, I get input from the supervisor, from my direct reports, from everybody else. Here are the goals we're going. Could we accomplish it? I mean, part of the communication, when we look at how do I get buy-in, and include type and quality of service of products. What do we do? What kind of products we should be going forward, depending on environmental forces or what the company says we're going to this new market, and the quality or service or product. Remember, in class, service or products, one is tangible, one is not tangible. Services are intangible. You only know how good the service is the last time I performed the services. A product, I could tell, hey, it worked last time. Odds are when I open up in a box, it's going to have the same functionality, and I could depend on that, okay? Depending on the vendor. Or the level of profit is to the organization is to earn. So those are my strategic plans, okay? Now, operational planning, objectives that specify how. Middle management, top management, the president and vice president, here's my objectives. We want to change this. Now, basically, the departments and division and work groups are basically saying, how am I going to meet those goals that management set up? Who will support those goals? And, so when you're doing the goals, you're trying to do goals that basically the whole organization will move the same way. And some of the goals may be the vision or for lack of better words, of the organization, quality goods. But then you have other goals. How are we going to use these products or come up with a new product or to service a new market? And it comes down basically to the first line supervisor, or if you're a small business, you are the first line supervisor, you're the owner. You are my consulting company, myself. I am it. I set certain goals. How do I increase it, or how do I slow down my customer base? All these are strategic plans that has to be done. Goals and objectives. So now, time span for a supervisor. Most supervisors, their whole life is day-to-day operation. How do I get? It came down to me, I have to satisfy the customer wants and needs now. He doesn't want to wait till next month, now. So it's less than a month, normally short periods. But you could still think strategically. Remember what I keep on bringing out, as a first-line supervisor, you have to tell your middle manager that you report to, you're one of his or hers direct reports. I'm thinking strategically how we could help the organization. That's my input. some are say, "Oh, that's down the road. I'm only going to work for a month to month." You want to move up to the next level, or if you're a business owner in your small business, you're taking the first line supervisor, but you're also thinking of strategically how do I change my company, or how do I grow my organization, or how do I sell my products to different markets. So you're thinking both from an objective portion versus to the goals. Okay, so you have different strategies. Okay, now when you look at smart objectives basically it does make a difference. I'm going to set some goals and objectives. They have to be specific. When you're talking to your employees, they got to be observable, achievable, link to rate, number, or percentage of frequency. So I have to be able to observe that I am actually achieving them. They have to be measurable. System, method, procedures, and tracking and recording. Okay? They have to be achievable. Could I reach it? You can put that carrot in there. If I can never bite the carrot, I'll after a while say, hey, I never could get it. Like there's some students or some businesses, I never could go in that market. I can never do that. You basically just set up yourself for failure. You have to have the goals, and so don't make the goals so large that there's no way to achieve it. You can have goals, but you do small objectives, little objectives. You meet those objectives to meet the larger goal. I want to lose weight. I can't lose it overnight unless I get suction out or whatever. I do little objectives. I stop eating Twinkies. That's my first objective. And my ultimate goal is to lose weight. And then next time my next objective, so I achieved that for a month. I no longer like Twinkies. Now what's the next thing that's putting on weight? I should do some exercise. So I have a goal. I'll walk 1 mile a week. Maybe a day. You walk. I'm just making them up. Do you see where I'm looking at? So you have to have something you can measure and you can basically see that you're having. So if you have a goal out there, try to break it down for your employees or your workforce into smaller segments so they could achieve it slowly, going like a process. I do one step, next step. Like if you're taking courses with me at a college, you want to get your associate degree, you want to get your bachelor's, you want to get your master's, whatever school you're going to, you set certain goals. I take one class and I take 2 classes. If I look, oh my God, it's going to take me 5 years to get it, you're already defeated. What could I do this semester? I could take so many. I start knocking them out. You know what I mean? So I'm eventually building, but I'm doing small objectives, achieving small objectives to reach my ultimate goal, and that's to get my degree. So I could be marketable and achievable. But you have to have that able to touch the goal, able to taste it. Otherwise, you're going to give up. Okay, you got to be relevant, important to the company, and something that an employee can impact of change. If you have a goal out there and I can't do anything, I can't change anything out, then that goal is useless. I can't improve on it. So you have to make sure the goals, you could tie it into the overall company goals from the individual objectives. Okay, gotta be time-based, specific dates when you're going to achieve the ultimate goal, but also the small objective that you're trying to accomplish. And if I look at this and it says, challenging, achievable, written, observable, you got to look at it. You got to be clear. You got to be specific in a nutshell. A lot of people like the visual. Okay, so now policies, procedures, and rules. How do I do policies, procedures, and rules? What are policies? This could help me achieve my goals, or this may not help me. Or it could be a broad guidelines for how to act. Procedures, steps that should be completed to achieve a specific purpose. Rules, specific statement what to do or not to do in a given situation. There's no flexibility. If there's a fire, turn the fire alarm. Well, let's think. Maybe we could get out. I could put out. No. What are the rules? The rules are fires. And that ties into rules and procedure very close. People will mix up this. So here's the procedure, how to accomplish something, but the rules are, and you have some, what they say, blue rules or red rules. Blue rules, you can kind of bend a little. Red rules, they have to do it. No discrimination, no sexual harassment, or no lying or cheating or whatever. Those are rules. You get caught, you're out. But then the procedures, how do I accomplish that? Okay, now if I'm looking at some of the procedures here, and I have this is a dress code policy. When you look at policy, it just says all employees will dress in a certain manner, All right, yeah, and this is for a hospital. Clinical staff dress according to guidelines of professional group. Support services. What should you wear? You should be professional. You shouldn't look like a bum. So, you still represent your organization if the customers come in, and if you're looking at quality. Because when people come in and they see their staff, they see the employees, they're all ragged and everything else. You're wondering, do they have the credibility? Are they really involved? Who are they? Like it or not, I'm saying that you're looking at human capital. They have the knowledge and everything else. Depending on the organization, when a customer's coming in, he or she's looking at that person, and how you come across basically makes a big difference. So here's a dress code policy. How you dress outside, I don't care. When you're dressing in here, if I'm doing something that's a conservative company, I don't want blue hair, red hair, pink hair, whatever kind of hair. We're conservative because this is my customer base. Otherwise, they're going to say, whoa, we're a little bit too freaky on this organization. I'm more of a conservative type. What you do outside the organization, different issue. But when you're working here, I have a policy that addresses that. Okay? Now, procedures and policies, and okay, we went with this. What's action planning? When I look at action planning, now I have my objectives. You have to, as a first line supervisor or an entrepreneur or a business owner, who's going to do what? What action needs to be taken? So I do an action plan. As a manager, here's an action plan. Who will take necessary steps to make this happen? When must each step be accomplished? We're going to talk about the Gantt charts and the bird chart. Where will the work take place, and how will the work be done? Those are all steps that you're looking at action planning. And you put people behind here, or resources, everything else. So it gives me a plan. And it should, it could be hard. A lot of people, the software that does it, I can just write it down. Here's what's going to do today. I want Jack to do this. I want Sally to do this. And here's the equipment. And I could do this for the weekly basis. But once you start going strategically, you have to have a different system so everyone could see what the procedures and the action plan is going to be for the organization. To have an action plan and the team doesn't understand what your action plan is, who's doing what, you will face some bumps in the road. Maybe even you may not achieve your objectives that you're looking at. You always need a contingency plan in business. You don't have to write down the contingency plan. What if something goes wrong? What if I go out there and it starts raining? Should I take a jacket? It's nice today, but they're saying cloudy. What's your contingency plan? I'm not expecting it to rain. They're always wrong, but I still have the umbrella or something in the bag. I don't have to have it. I just have it there. What if? Supervisor prepares if things go wrong. I got my plan for tomorrow, so the truck won't start, or one of my employees doesn't show up, my key employees. Where do I get the other employee and something goes wrong? Remember, decision-making, the decision-making always should have an alternative plan. Does not have to be formal, written down for contingency plan. As a middle manager, remember, I'm looking at the first line supervisor. A little different. I'm not looking at a middle manager who will have a written down contingency plan, because it's basically effective in departments. So I have to have something written, not working off the cuff, because I got to come up with some kind of document. But as a first line supervisor, I just keep that in my mind. Okay? It looks at errors where something might go wrong. You've had it before. Murphy's Law, poor Murphy. What if it goes wrong? I'm always looking to be able to take care of the worst case scenario, but I plan for the worst case scenario in a contingency plan, but I'm always hoping for the best scenario. But I always had to continue in case something happens, because you never know. A lot of things could happen. Okay, determine how to respond to these problems do arise. Okay, management by objectives. Now, if I'm looking at management by objectives, usually it depends on your process and everything else. But most of your hourly workers, it's not by managed by objectives. They're just following you. You, as a supervisor, report to me as a middle manager, and I will sit down with you and basically, here's your personal goals, here's your employee commitments. As part of determining my objectives, I give you feedback. I reward rewards and meeting certain objectives. I use all levels of the company. I have a balanced scorecard so everyone knows where it's going. And I sit down as a one-on-one, and we set up goals and objectives. Here's my goal, and your objectives, how you're going to achieve these goals. And it's a relationship. And it's basically tied into where we had it over here when I looked at the white plan and supervisors, how they involved in the strategic planning. Okay? Now I'm going to move back over here. So we have that. We take care of management by objective. Usually you could try to use it if I'm a business owner with my employees. I could have them certain goals. But usually in the middle or organization, first line supervisors, you are the management by objective. Your hourly workers are, you treat them a little bit different. You could try it. It may work. Some people do it, give them the objectives, but you're looking more of a longer term. Okay, supervisors planning activities. What does a supervisor's plan? Info for higher level planning. He or she develops a budget. Work improving the program. HR resources. Do I have human resources? Do I have the right person? Plan for the production. Allocate resources. This is a big one. Arrange of resources. People, machinery had to be at the right time. And schedule. Precise timetable to be followed. Production, goods, and services. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have a little bit more. I think budgets and everything else. This is just a general thing. So there we go. Develop a budget, high level of the things. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are my 5 planning supervisors planning activities. Okay, now scheduling. When I look at scheduling, I have the goals, and a lot of first-line supervisors, or you have your foreman or field supervisors or team, they basically have to do some scheduling. So what is the first, some tools that I use for scheduling is the program evaluation review technique. Graphic network representation, things to be done. It gives me the activities, it gives me the event, it gives me my critical path. And if you look at, there's more information if you take me to one of the workshops or at the college level that will support that in your reading. Remember, when I'm doing the concept maps and these short videos that I'm recording, is just you already read the information, you have everything else. These are just triggers, something else. I'm trying to bring everything together so you can see how the pieces fit together, why they are important. Okay, so we have the PERT thing. Another one that a lot of individuals like to do is basically scheduling tool. List activities to be completed. A Gantt chart uses horizontal bars to grafting. How far did we do? You know what I mean? Are we on target? Where are we at? Where's our this is where we should do it. How far did we do to accomplish the goal? How long will each activity take, including the starting and end dates? A lot of times they would call priority meetings, weekly or monthly. Are we on target? Where should we do it? What should we do? Some change it. If I'm not on target, when we talk about the controls, how do I make the adjustment so I make the target? Remember, in business, my whole thing is meeting the customer's service state, and it can be internal customers or external customers or reports or whatever I have to do. I have to basically, I'm always striving to meet that date. How do I accomplish it? So here's my date. I have to go all the way back. If I'm getting married, I'm not worried if I'm going to invite a big party. I know I'm going to get married in May. I have to start planning and getting everything else. So when May comes, I should have a wife or a husband. I should have whatever I want to do. I should have the hall reserved. I should have a minister if you're going to do it, or if you're going to do it at the city hall to get married, whatever. Already open in those days. What do I need for there? Okay, so when I'm looking at that, here's my date. I back it up here, and I start planning my resources, my people, my capital, everything to make that goal. I'm just using that as an example. Okay, now planning with a team. Planning with a team, you have self-managed teams. You as a manager have to communicate the scope of the plan. I'm planning with a team, so the self-managed team. Here is our goals. Here's our objectives. When do you want to do it? Encourage members to cooperate. Remember, 10 members later on, we're going to be talking about how you form teams, storming, norming, and performing. In each stage as a first-line supervisor, how do I adjust and make sure that the team members are working together? And monitor the progress. And as a supervisor, I take the role of controller. Employees understand. Do they have the right equipment? And are they timely? When I say that they have the time to focus on meeting the goal. And goals have to, if I'm going to say I'm going to lose weight, that's my goal. When? Down the road. When I'm 95 or when I pass away, sure, I'm going to lose weight. I'll decompose. I'm just making fun. Just trying to bring a little humor into the thing. But you see what I mean? So you have to, when I'm looking at this, I take the control. I have to set a time so people have something objective to meet my objectives. Okay. Now the last one I'm looking at here is the control process. Now if I'm looking at control process, here's the figure, and I'll just put this in there. I established you have to have standards. This is this whole thing I'm talking about. I have to be able to monitor the performance, meet the standards, fix the problems if they're not meeting the standards. How do I make the adjustment? I don't want poor quality or missing too many service dates. Reinforce the successes. So that's basically the figure you're looking at. How do I establish that? It has to be written. You have to have your standards written. What is my goal? My goal is to, for my weight, I should be able to achieve this goal, because that's what the standard is. It has to be measurable, it has to be clear, it has to be specific, and it has to be challenging but achievable. If you have certain standards, and they meet the standards, and they meet them too quickly. If I have a standard to do a job at a certain time frame, and to do it quickly, maybe my standards are too lax or too easy, because they're achieving them way too quickly. So let's challenge them a little bit. The next time we have our management by objectives with the supervisor, let's push the, but still that he or she could achieve them. Because remember, I want to be challenged. Most people want to be challenged. Otherwise, I could do it later. I'm not challenged. Remember, when we talked about Maslow and Herzberg and everything else, they basically are looking at the intrinsic. How do I, not the extrinsic, that's the reward and everything else. How do I challenge? Part of the whole thing is I want a challenging job. If I'm bored. The new Generation Y millennials, basically they want challenges. I just don't want a good pay. Everyone wants a good pay. But I want to challenge an individual. Otherwise, they're going to leave me. Okay, monitor my performance. Tools for control. My budgets. My budgets is looking, plan for spending money. This next one is performance. Let me just move this out a little bit. Performance reports. And when I look at the performance reports, now look, compare performance with standards. We've had accounting. Those are your managers. Those are your owners. I'm looking at, what is the variance. Here's my goal, here's my standard, here's what I want to accomplish, but I'm not achieving it. What's the difference? What's my what was my goal last year, and am I achieving it? What's the variance? What's the so I'm not there. How do I close up that gap? Exception principle. You have to understand, sometimes you may not be able to achieve your objectives in that time frame. I could push it over, but I have to do something to make sure I either work more or the circumstances change, or I have more equipment to catch up, so I'm still back on track to meet the organizational's long-term goals at the end. Remember, my goals are broken down either by weekly, bi-weekly, bi-monthly, certain objectives to meet the goal at the end. You want to graduate? What do you have to do? You can't take 2 semesters off and think you're going to graduate. Maybe something happened. You got sick. You got something happened. Your wife, just something, some major event happened in your life that you cannot complete the degree. You can't do the classes here. So what happens next semester? If you still want that service to graduate at that thing, you have to double your classes. You have to take more classes than you want to. You give up something. There's almost so much time in the day to make up, and then once you're back on track the next semester, you already caught up what you lost this semester, like a goal, your objective, and now you're back on track to achieve your goal to graduate when in the time frame that you set for yourself, because it was achievable. Things happen, okay? In the personal observation, always look to see are they working hard, or are they achieving the goals? I could look real quickly to see, wait a minute, I've got all these things and nothing been, I'm trying to reduce my bills or control my budget, but the cost is going up higher. I could just know it. I don't have to have, the numbers just justify it for me. Okay, and different types of controls. Feedback is really easy for first-line supervisor. Control that focuses on past performance. You could do it. What happened last time? Concurrent control is control that occurs while the work takes place, and pre-control is efforts aimed at preventing behavior that may lead to undesirable result. So I know from last time, here's where we had a stumbling block. So I am aware this is going to happen. How do I adjust this so it doesn't happen, or minimize that block or something that's going to slow me down, or reduce the likelihood that I'll achieve that objective in the time frame that I set for myself. Okay? So I'm forward thinking. So that basically, and let's see, did I get characteristics? Okay, timeliness. I missed characteristics. Excuse me. Timeliness. Make sure it's on time. Cost effectively. Make sure that the calls are cost effective. and they could do it. Hang on a second. I'm live. Turn this off. Okay. So if I'm looking at the cost effectiveness, accessibility, acceptable not only to me as a supervisor, I'm going to do it for management, accept the supervisor, but also management by objective, but also that my employees accept the goals. Here's the goals, and here's the reason and the rationale. They'll do it. It's easier to tell them why and what's in it for me. The company will survive. You may get a bonus. Other companies are closing down, but if we do this, we at least will have some security for the next year or two. Okay. You also have to look at the characteristics to be flexible. Supervisor should be able to ignore a variance in the best interest of the organization. Here's the variance. It says you're out of the lead. You're going to go over budget, but this customer, we already upsetted him. We already did everything else. It was one of those jobs that nothing was going right. Even though my variance says you shouldn't be spending no more money because I'm going to go over budget. That's what my control process says. But in this case, because we did such a bad job, or the plan and things didn't go on, I'm going to go over budget. I'm flexible enough because in the best interest of the organization, this customer will be a happy customer, and he or she will. They've got other jobs. They may utilize us and we don't want to have him or her or the organization or whoever we're doing have a bad taste in their mouth about our organization because we didn't achieve it. Things happen. Come on, those of us who've been in business, those we're managers, supervisors. Sometimes you just have a job, what they call a job from hell. No matter what happens, everything just doesn't go right. The customer doesn't realize that. The customer knows, hey, what's going on? What kind of operation you got? I thought you were a top-notch organization. It just happened. And some processes can't be us. It could be some vendor, something else happened. It could be the weather. Whatever, I have to do in the best interest to not look at the variances I'm going over, but have the flexibility to satisfy the customer's need and still meet the service states. Okay? So in a nutshell, that is it. I think I'm under 20 minutes, I hope. I try to keep these a little shorter so we have everything else. So what did we cover today? We covered planning. We know the difference between objectives and goals. We know the time frame for a first-line supervisor. But remember, you still have to think strategically if you want the next promotion, or as a business owner, you play all the different roles. So you have multiple personalities, different roles you play within your organization. You know what the SMART goals are, and basically measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based, and you have to be very specific. Policies and rule, policies, procedures, and rules. Each has a functionality to keep me on course. Action planning, you have to have a plan who's going to do what. Remember, in action planning, I'm looking what, who, when, where, and how. Remember that. That's important. You have to have the right people and the right resources. Contingency planning, always have a backup. For the first-line supervisor, you do not need to have it written down. As a middle manager or owner, usually it's easier to have it written down because you have other departments that are also trying to achieve the goals that you set up, managed by objectives. You sit down to employ, you set up using the goals that when you're going to accomplishment. You got to be specific, and it has to be attainable. And then here's the reward you get. The supervisor 5 planning. How do I do a schedule and different things? How I plan. Even though it's a self-functional team, I still, as a manager, whether I'm a first-line supervisor or a middle manager, and I have self-managed teams, I still have to be involved. They're empowered. I have to make sure, because ultimately it's going to affect the organizational's goals in the long run. Okay, and the control process. And remember, part of the control process we didn't talk about here, but technology is a good control process with the variance and everything else. When the individual turns in their timesheets, if you have timesheets, and you should utilize timesheets, you don't have any man hours versus to engineering hours versus to construction hours, whatever. So you have the timesheets, and those timesheets, if they're entered daily, it already fills in the information for me, makes my life easier. I don't have to watch them once they fill in, but I have to observe. Do they actually meet the goal? If the project says I'm 99%, I'm 90% complete, so, oh man, this is perfect. I go on the job site, I go in there, there's nothing there. How the heck did he do? Well, we're going to just do it all at the last week. That is not strategically planning. That is, I hope I made it. Okay? So we have everything else. So my name is Dr. George Mochocki. You're taking me for supervision. either in a series at online, face-to-face, at a college level, or in some workshops that I may be doing. You have all the information, and I enjoy talking to you on this short video. I think next one I may do will be using some PowerPoints other than usually I utilize the concept maps, because you already have the information, and these are just triggers so you understand, hey, I know all this. Remember, we have all these labels and everything else. And once you start doing this, you just do it. As an instructor, or as a manager, as a first-line supervisor, myself, and everything else, going up through the corporate ladders, it's just there. You just know how to do it. The more you do it, these are labels and everything else for you to understand, so you know how to plan what you should have. After a while, these are just tools that you're going to be utilizing. It'll make your life easier, less stressful. Your employees will be happier, because you're not just putting out fires. You're proactive, and proactively, not only for the week, but the organization is proactive going forward. What's the environmental forces? How do I prepare for this? I know there's a strike coming in. Do I stockpile more information, or do I find another vendor to, if it's in the logistic? I know UPS is going on strike, or post office may be going on strike. Just talk about it. I already set up. I don't wait till the strike comes, who I'm going to go to. I already have some kind of a contingency plan in place. All right? So I'll see you in our next chapter 7 when we go in there, and have a nice day.